So this was a fun moment. They had passed out some banners for everyone. There was about 750 or so that came from all around the country. There was some quite large groups from the upper uh, west area, Montana, Washington, Hawaii. We had a large group from Hawaii. There's probably about 40 from Hawaii or so. Just other pockets around the country, and it was great just to be around everybody and everyone's attitude and just seeing how this has made such a difference in their life. I was privileged to meet each one of the founders. So this is Jason Arfman. He's the CEO. And so these are the founders here, these five. This is Roger Ball and his daughter, Christy. This is Richard Hansen. This is Josh Davis, or Josh Anderson and Zach Davis. And these are Roger and Richard. These two gentlemen here were the first two to propose this idea. What was the idea? The idea was for the average person to be able to have access to gold and silver and understand the importance of having it. And as we've all learned and as we've all grown in the understanding of this, it was just really neat to meet these people. I was taken when I first got to the hotel. George, who sponsored Jim, who was the first one in Hawaii, uh, George took me up to Roger, and it was like I was meeting an uncle because he was just so down to earth. And here he is, a multi-billionaire, and yet the most important things to him are his faith and his family, and which is very refreshing. And so I got a chance to meet him, talk to him. He said, family is extremely important. He said, don't give up. As long as the sky is blue, don't give up. Keep going for it. And he shared just some very touching stories about his family life, and really that he wants, and his desire is that 7K really be his legacy company, that it's all about family. It's all about that average person getting some gold and silver in their hand to be a hedge against financial collapse, and that we would all have some. And so that's the journey they set out. So when Richard Hansen approached him and he said, what is it going to take? And Richard told him $100 million to start. That Roger was just willing to go, okay, let's do this, because I want to help people. I want to leave this as my legacy to my family, and this being his daughter, Christy. And now she's joined the board of advisors. And you just see just such a positivity. And like I said, faith and family are important to all of them. That I feel that we're all one big family, and that we're all doing this together, and we're all learning and growing. I mean, when I first started, which was only March 6th, as we've all started, you have that one person on your left team and one person on your right team. And today I can say that team is now about 290 in just that short period of time. So you can see how quickly a team can grow, and how, what it comes down to is just making a positive impact in people's lives. Just wanted to give you some feel for how it was. As I mentioned to those of you who joined afterwards, there was about 750, 800 folks that gathered from all around the country. We started Friday around noon, and then all day, most of the day on Saturday was the event itself. But a lot of chance to get to know folks and hear their stories. And like I said, like I told everyone in the beginning, I met every one of the founders, the CEO, got to talk to them one-on-one, in most cases. Just a really high quality group of people with big hearts. And it was just such a great thing to be a part of. So just a couple other shots of just the room. They initially planned for approximately 500, and then they quickly outgrew that, so they had to spread into an adjacent room, and obviously that's what it turned into, is that a double the size of what they initially anticipated. This gentleman here is Miles Standish, and he is was recognized as one of the top 2 or top 10, but he's of the top 2 most influential graders and designers of coins in the recognized coin world, and he was there as a special guest. A lot of the, if any of you got that Liberty coin, Miss Liberty, that is his design. The gold ones as well as the silver ones. So great gentleman. It was fun to get to meet him. And this other photo is this is obviously me, and then this is George, who sponsored Jim. And Jim, friend of mine, he happened to be the first one in Hawaii when he joined literally a year ago. And Jim, as maybe some of you haven't heard the story, Jim initially just wanted to join and be a collector. He saw the importance and the value in collecting coins, and that's why he started. And it wasn't until late February this year where he got a call from a gentleman by the name of Gary Goslin, and that just started something amazing. And now under Jim, there's approximately 850 folks, part of the Hawaii team. And we've learned since that it's one of 2 Hawaii teams. Another Hawaii team started in November of last year. But it's just incredible to see, just God's hand in all this, and why this is happening, and why it is growing around the world. And it was really neat to get to know George better. He lives in Baton Rouge, and he and his wife obviously been retired for a number of years. Credible man, credible family, and everybody was. It was just really neat to meet them. One thing they talked a lot about is building a legacy. And as you can see here by this definition on this slide, legacy is defined. It's something you're creating today, whether you realize it or not, that you will leave behind. And obviously, as we all know, a legacy can be positive or negative. And so the goal with 7K is to obviously leave a positive impact in our family, in the lives of our friends, and in our extended families. And we have the opportunity to do that. And one of the things that was mentioned as well is that really we have the right owners, the ones that are in charge of making the decisions on behalf of the company. They are men and women of integrity and really a purpose. The purpose isn't about, even though we're using money, so to speak, it's not about money. It's ultimately about helping people make it through the challenging times that are likely ahead. We have the right leaders in the field, and that is, I think, that's representative of each one of you, that you're out there and you're sharing with integrity, and you are doing it with the right purpose and the right focus, and that you truly have hearts to want to help people, and that's important. Keep that in mind. The right products and service. I mean, really, it's hard to beat gold and silver when it comes to the right product, as we've all experienced. And I think service really comes from the heart, and I think we all demonstrate that. And they noted here the right compensation plan. And so for those of us that are using this as a small business, it has to make sense. It has to be something that has the potential. And I can honestly say it does. And it is amazing how quickly things can grow. And it is such a privilege to be able to help people get introduced to such a great company. A couple other things they mentioned about legacy company. It is built now and it is experienced later. they're trying to do things right from the beginning. They're not trying to build so fast and expand around the world, because they could do that really quickly. They could be trying to, for example, sell to people in the Philippines tomorrow or Japan tomorrow. But if they do it quickly and they don't do it right, then that's just going to be um, that'll be soon over, and they'd be blocked out of the country forever. So they make sure that they do things right, because their intention is to last for generations. And that's how they're building this company from the beginning. A special note that was mentioned to me is that Roger Ball was the investor. He put up the dollars to get the company started. He is no longer owed a penny. He hasn't put another penny into it in the last 2.5 years, and he's been completely paid back from his original investment. And he said he has zero intention and likely would never have to put in another penny again. And that's a good sign. That's a good sign of a company that is started out the right way and has continued along the right way. And that their whole focus is now is helping each one of us succeed in our mission to share. And so that they really are doing it right from the beginning. Remember that your last name is bigger than your first. Was a comment made that that's what people are ultimately known by, is their last name, and that's what makes us a collective, is our last name, right? In a family, in a typical biological family, right, we share a last name. So we have individual first names, but really each individual in that family is supposed to be a good representative of that family, and one person being negative can bring that family name down. And so that's what that means, is that really each of us represent 7K, and we represent the true heart behind it and the mission behind it. And I know each one of you represents it well. And so they just wanted to emphasize how important it is that we are all representatives. You make things happen for others has a greater impact than you make it happen for yourself. I can speak to this too. I feel like that's my main role, is helping everyone else succeed. And, and that's important to me. That is my goal with each of you. Any way that I can support you, any way that I can help you. And if you feel at any time that I'm not, I would want you to tell me that. And, but I just want you to know that I am here to help in any way I can. And remember how you started, but focus on how you finish. I think, again, that's all comes down to integrity. And, ultimately what we're left with in the end of our days is how we finish the race. And it's not so important about how we did financially with 7K, but more so the impact we made on others' lives. And that's what we'll be remembered for. This is a small representation, really, actually, of the Hawaii group. This is missing a few on this particular team that went to Salt Lake. And we have a couple of our adopted folks in here. This is Bob Reed. Some of you may have met him when he came to Hawaii with his wife, Pamela. And this is George here. And then the rest are from Hawaii. And then there was, like I mentioned, another group that started last November, has mainly in Maui and Kauai, but they were there in quite a large number as well. So I think combined between the two groups, there was 40, 45 folks from Hawaii, which is a pretty good representation. One of the neat things that happened is they gave permission, I should say, for the Hawaii group to give a prayer blessing to kick off our evening session on Friday. And it's quite powerful. They had a prayer. It was a procession led with shofar and flags, and they really took time to prepare for it. and they marched in a procession, and then they went up on stage and danced to the song "How Great Thou Art" in Hawaiian and English, and it was quite the powerful moment. It was just neat to see that Hawaii was recognized and being able to participate that way. But I did want to tell you guys a neat story. There was inside the hotel was a little shop, little souvenirs and water and all those kind of little things inside the hotel. And I walked in there, and these gentlemen from Montana were talking to the clerk, and there was these thing called goldbacks, and in Utah, Nevada, and I can't think of the other state. Somebody might know the answer, but they sell these goldbacks. They're basically pressed gold into paper thin bills of 1, 5s, and 10s, and they are legal tender, but people often use them just as a collection because they're unique in that way, right? And so these gentlemen were standing there, and they said, "Oh, we're going to buy these goldbacks here. There's not very many. Can you get more?" And the lady behind the counter goes, "Well, I'll have to call the person who has these." And he goes, "Well, you better get a lot of them because there's a lot of us here." And the long and the short of it is that lady had been contemplating shutting down her business. And she literally, in one day, got enough business, sold out of all her entire stock at home and at the store. And it literally saved her business. And she was so blown away. And the kicker to the whole story is that at 1:30 the next morning, she officially became a 7K member. And, now seeing her life change, possibly in more than one way. Their business was saved, but it also that she would have this opportunity now to join the 7K Ohana and see where that takes her. And it was really just a neat example of how impactful this can be. And constantly throughout the time that this past weekend, they gave room for testimonies. And there was just so many testimonies where people just were needing some other answer in their life for, with COVID last year, there was so many that talked about how that was devastating to them as a family, and how 7K really became an answer for them and a help to them in more ways than one. And so it was just a powerful weekend, and I'm glad somebody encouraged me to do this. And they did talk about the silver shortage. One thing you all be encouraged to know is worldwide 7K is in probably the best position, even with amongst the mints. There's mints that are coming to 7K and saying, "Can we get your silver supply?" Because 7K just bought the next 3 years worth of silver that they'll need, and they projected that based on their growth. And so you imagine how much raw silver that was. And so they really are in I guess you'd say, the driver's seat regarding being the best supply source for us as members, and then obviously worldwide in their partnerships with other mints and things. But they did address it. They talked about how the likely squeezes that are coming up will push the values higher. And so we really are in a time now where it's important to let people know the importance of having some as the dollar weakens. But they talked about a new membership benefit. One of the questions that has come up for many is like, why I get these collectibles and I love my collectibles, but what if I need to sell my collectibles? What do I do? And the answer up until a couple of days ago was, well, you have eBay, and but then you don't have eBay. Now, they're taking away the ability from these companies like eBay and Facebook Marketplace. And so they announced, a big announcement was they are doing a beta testing of a new app called Stack and Sell. And it is an amazing app that will allow us to not only keep track of all our collectibles and register specifically our own collectibles attached to us specifically, but it gives a marketplace that we'd be able to put those potentially for sale, and it's all anonymous, which is great, which is also a missing component. If you ever try to do something via Craigslist or whatever, I'll meet you by a gas station and you bring the money and I'll give you the coin. And but this really brings the integrity to that whole process, that it is exactly what it should be. It's professional and it's safe, secure, and it's anonymous. You know, the seller and the buyer don't even know who each other is. It's there's a process where you'd say, well, let's say I have my Miles Standish signed gold coin and I want to sell that, and I put a price that I'm wanting to sell it for and in the marketplace, and then people would be able to find it and say, oh, I'm interested in that, and put in either a counter offer or just accept that one. And then as the seller, I ship it up to 7K. 7K goes through the verification process, make sure it's authentic, make sure that it's still in its numismatic case and that it that it is exactly what it's supposed to be. And then once it meets that, they ship it to the buyer. So it really does close the loop on that final piece, I believe, of the pie when it comes to everything to do with, as buyers, as sellers, investors, for everything you can think of now. I don't know if there's any unanswered questions regarding that in particular, but that certainly solves a lot. Asking about how soon they'll get through the beta testing, that's a good question. I don't know. They didn't really. I think they were trying to test market it for the next 3 months, I believe, and then see where. But it probably could ramp up sooner than that if it's passing all the beta testing protocols. They probably would push it out quicker. As far as the resale process, their target is within 72 hours. So from the time it's put on the marketplace and somebody accepts it, and then that item is shipped up and then shipped out, that it would go from the seller to the buyer within 72 hours is the goal. No, it does not have to be 7K coins only. It really can be any collectible, any numismatic coin. The only challenge that a non-registered NGC product would bring is they would want to make sure that they can get as much information on the collectible that's being sold. If it is registered with another company, they'd want to be able to verify that information with that company to make sure it's legit. And they would obviously have ability to test it as well, and the integrity of the case, as well as the fact that it is indeed what it's supposed to be. Other than that, I'd really appreciate you guys. I could feel your support. And my goal is that I want all of us to be there next year. It was kind of neat to see teams stand up. They went there with their, I guess the person who introduced them, or at least in my case, I went with Jim, right? Because Jim is, for all of us, Jim is the first person in Hawaii, so to speak. But I would love to have a team of us get there next year. Let's target. They haven't announced where it's going to be yet, so I know that's probably contingent for some of your plans. I'll bid you guys a good night, and just thank you all for your continued support and your continued work in representing 7K so well, and I look forward to our continued relationship and building this family together.